All right, welcome to this webinar called How to Clear Your Fears, Stop Your Sabotage, and Succeed with Joy in Your Mary Kay business. This is a Mary Kay only webinar. Not that the concepts only apply to Mary Kay, but we're going to put all the context in Mary Kay only. And I need to pre-apologize if there's a bunch of sound that ends up coming in. I've got people in my office renovating the office, and my internet at home is out. So I'm in one of the rarely used rooms in our office, but the workers are still there. So if you hear anything that may sound like there's construction going on or I'm about to get eaten by a big giant machine, all is well. And so I'll just pre-apologize for that. All right, let me start these slides here. Oh, that's not what I want. I guess I got to open the slides. Perfect. You can't hear anything yet. Awesome. All right. There you go. This is how to start a webinar. Okay. Let me go back to the title slide. Perfect. So how to clear your fears, how to stop your sabotage, how to succeed with joy. If you've been on webinars of mine before, this might be a little bit different. Because I'm just going to riff a little bit. And I want to talk to you really about three things. Let me mute everybody. You can unmute yourselves later if there's some time afterwards for a little Q&A session. So I want to talk to you about three things. And they're all in the context of clearing your fears, stopping the sabotage, and succeeding with joy. So the truth about success and fulfillment is what I want to discuss. And what a lot of people are focused on is just success. But success doesn't necessarily create fulfillment. And if you can hear the vacuum, I don't know if you can hear that now. They're vacuuming right outside my door. Apologize if you can hear it. Success doesn't necessarily create fulfillment. And what most of us are doing in society is searching for ways to succeed, which makes sense, right? We want to make more money, we want more success, we want to lose the weight, we want all the things that we want. But the problem with that is that a lot of times we sacrifice our fulfillment in the journey towards success. In our attempts to succeed, we actually sacrifice our fulfillment. We sacrifice our happiness. Sometimes we sacrifice our values. None of that is ever going to be intentional. But what a lot of us don't understand is that success doesn't create happiness. Success doesn't create joy, especially when the success is coming from a place of our intellect. It's coming from a place of external sources, external validation. Maybe it's what society tells us we're supposed to want, or the way that we're supposed to succeed, or our families, or whatever other external sources of input we have. Could be our schools, could be friends of ours. Whatever the external source of input is, a lot of times we start chasing that and we end up not being happy. And I think a lot of us can recognize that sometime in the past, or maybe this is even true for you now, that you've started to, or maybe even already succeeded at something that you didn't actually want. And you might not have realized that as you started to create and chase that success. You might not have realized it. But what happens with so many people is we follow this roadmap. We follow the game plan toward succeeding in any area of life. This is not a Mary Kay problem whatsoever, but in any area of life. And then we get it and we realize it didn't make us happy. It didn't actually bring us joy. It didn't bring us fulfillment. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because for women specifically, when it comes to success and fulfillment, you got to go in the opposite order. It's really about fulfillment first and then success. And there are a few different reasons for that. And this is based on almost 15 years of doing this work with women, almost exclusively, and mostly women in Mary Kay. So I'm just reporting to you what I've learned over the years of coaching and training and teaching in the Mary Kay world. And then what we know about the difference between women and men, and more specifically the feminine energy and the masculine energy, is that women, well, let me say the other way first. Most men need to perform well to feel good. We are taught that our value comes from performance. So in order for us to feel good, we need to perform well. That's the way we're programmed as men. And then what we do is we teach everybody else that same thing, because that's what we know. That's what we think is the answer. So we teach that to our families. We teach it to anybody that we are in any kind of influence position with. We teach them that in order to feel good, you have to perform. And so a lot of women are taught, in order to feel good, you have to perform. But women primarily, and again, this is the feminine energy, works the opposite. For women, you got to feel good to perform well. We see this in sports all the time. This is one of the ways that I started to really see the difference here, is that with boys in sports, as a coach, the way we create practices, the way that we discipline, the way that we set up all the structures and everything related to the sport is different than what we do with girls in a sport, right? We got to make the practices more fun for the girls. And then what we found, those of us that have coached girls before, what we found is that if the practices are fun and the girls are having fun, then they actually pay more attention to the instruction. But a lot of us men, like if you join a sport, you're just supposed to be engaged in the teaching and the learning and the practicing of the sport just because you're supposed to do it. There doesn't need to be this fun factor. The way you have fun is you beat people. That's the way you have fun. You win. So that's this masculine programming that we teach, and it perpetuates well beyond just sports. It perpetuates into success of all kinds. And that's not the best way for women primarily. So if you want to succeed, you've got to feel good first. And that's why the focus on your life is so critical. That's why life coaching could be one of the most important things that you do, so that you feel good about yourself, your body, your self-esteem, what you see in the mirror, your looks. You clear whatever shame and guilt there is around the past. You heal whatever decision resistance you have. You clear whatever fears you have around sales or recruiting or success in general, or just anything related to your experience of success, with success. In Mary Kay specifically, you've got to clear those things. Because when you can clear whatever those conflicts are, then you will have more permission to actually succeed in the business. But what we find is that the women who are struggling in Mary Kay, usually they're trying to motivate themselves to succeed so that they will be happy. And if this is resonating for you, if you recognize that pattern in yourself, whether it's Mary Kay specifically or life in general, and you're on the Zoom platform, then please let me know in the comment section if that is really resonating with you, because this is what we see in life in general. So the thinking is, if I'm successful, then I will be happy. We call it when I, then I programming. When I become successful, then I will be happy. But that's conditional happiness. In other words, we don't get to be happy unless we're successful. And then the opposite must also be true, right? That if we're not successful, then we can't be happy. That is one of the most damaging pieces of programming that we get from society. Now, this is generally the masculine voice. This is generally men who've taught us that's the way to live. That's the way to feel value. But it's not true. Not true for any of us, but it's really, really not true for women. And here's the other thing. If you've been programmed that you need to succeed first and then you can be happy, what you will find, if you figure out how to succeed without your happiness and fulfillment, if you figure out how to do that through motivation or whatever, self-abuse, whether it's negative or positive, not self-abuse is always going to be negative, but whether your motivation strategy ends up being negative or positive, if you find a way to succeed without your happiness and fulfillment being a main focus, what you'll find is that your success will not create the joy that you hope it will. But then here's the problem with that programming. If that's what was supposed to happen in order for you to succeed, in other words, if that's the condition that you were supposed to fulfill, and then you were going to be happy, and you fulfilled the condition, but you still didn't get happy, you still didn't have joy, you still didn't have balance, you still didn't have the financial freedom or the emotional freedom or whatever it was that you thought you were going to get through the success, then what do you do now? That's the predicament that so many successful people find themselves in. Even if they succeed, but they're not joyful, then they don't know where to go from there, because they did the thing that they thought they needed to do, and yet it didn't produce the feelings that they thought it was going to produce. So then some people will say, well, I must need to succeed more. I must need to climb the ladder higher. Some people will just quit and just give up and go, well, this is not for me. And then some people will just wrestle with sabotage for forever, like have this really unclean and unhealthy relationship to success, because you have a false programming, a false idea that success and self-esteem are tied together. Meaning, if you're successful, you can feel better about yourself. If you're successful, you're more valuable as a person. If you're successful, you see yourself with a higher level of self-esteem. But if you're not as successful, then you see yourself with a lower level of self-esteem. And here's the trap that happens so often in Mary Kay. If you're not where you want to be in your business, and I've never met a consultant, director, or even a national yet who would say, yeah, I'm exactly where I want to be. I don't want any more than this. Right? If you have ambition left in your bones, in your neurology, in your mind, then you're going to want a little bit more. No matter where you are, you want a little bit more. So the trap is, if you haven't achieved the success that you've wanted, especially if you've been in the business for any significant period of time. Let's say you've been in the business for 3 years and you wanted to be a director by now, but you're not. If you're under the spell of this programming that you need to succeed first in order to feel good about yourself, well, now you're in a catch-22 situation, because you didn't succeed. Therefore, you don't feel good about yourself. But if you don't feel good about yourself, how are you going to succeed? That's the trap that this programming causes for most people, and especially for women. So we have to be able to pull this apart. Yeah, somebody just said, I don't give myself permission to have fun until I show results. But you're not going to have results until you give yourself permission to have fun. That's the double-edged sword that we're talking about here. That's the catch-22. And what I want to tell you is that it doesn't mean that you're undisciplined. It doesn't mean that you're unfocused. It doesn't mean that you just have to do better and be prettier and smarter and taller and thinner and everything that your comparison dialogue might be telling you, your comparison head talk. None of that's true. The truth is, you just got to have more fun. One of the missing ingredients in most adult lives is fun. And fun is going to be a more powerful recruiting tool and magnet than any amount of information you could ever collect. Fun is what's going to cause women to go, I kind of want to do that. Not 13% or 50% or any of the other reasons that some people might join the business intellectually. Even security, even like a retirement plan. That sounds really good. And I don't mean to be demeaning in any way. I'm just telling you what we've learned from literally coaching thousands of women in Mary Kay. The money sounds great. The retirement plan sounds great. But if I were to ask, if I were to have asked any of you when you were a young girl what you wanted when you grew up, not a single one of you would have told me a good retirement plan. Now, I'm not saying that's not important. It is important to the intellect, but it's not fuel to the soul. Let me say that again. Not just the retirement plan, but even money, success, approval from other people, proving that you can do it to yourself or to others. All of that is self-driven, intellectual desire. But that doesn't fuel your little girl's soul. And if the fuel from your soul does not outweigh the challenges of the business, you don't get to win. It's just that simple. So what most people are trying to do is overcome their intellectual challenges with intellectual reasons or intellectual motivation. But I would say the intellect can't even be motivated, at least not from a grounded, rooted, passionate perspective. So for most of you, and when I say most, I really mean all, but I don't use universals because universals are never right. They're always wrong. That was a joke. For pretty much all women, especially if you're struggling in Mary Kay, the answer is going to be to reintroduce you to your passion. That's underneath the challenges of this business. That's much more powerful than the sabotage of the intellect. And that is more driven by fulfillment first. Fun, fulfillment, freedom. And then you can throw success on top of that. Because all of the sabotage, I'm kind of filtering what I just said all, but I'm just going to go with it. All of the sabotage that I can think of that we've ever dealt with is coming from an intellectual fear of something bad happening. It's coming from failure. It's coming from the possibility of rejection. It's coming from sacrificing. It's coming from, what if I just don't win? What's the negative thing that might happen? That's where all the sabotage is. And so in order for us to break through that sabotage, we got to stop fighting the way we've always been fighting. And we got to stop focusing on what we've always been focusing on. But you can disrupt all of that programming with passion and with fun and with your desire for freedom and your desire to serve people, to help people. In reality, that is going to determine your success or failure much more than any how-to piece of information you could possibly find. Anything. Let me try to think of this phrase that I said out loud for the first time on a coaching call earlier today. Your passion-driven proficiency. I don't like the way that's coming out, but your let me just say this. Your passion-driven proficiency, meaning that your mindset is fueled by passion, can overcome any of your intellectual deficiencies. But your intellectual proficiency cannot overcome your passion deficiency. Let me kind of dissect that and break that down. Because what most people are doing is they're searching for their intellectual proficiency. They're searching for how to invite, how to overcome objections, how to make sure nobody says no. They're coming from all of these intellectual preparation perspectives. And your intellectual preparation cannot overcome a soul that has not been lit on fire with passion. But a soul that's been lit on fire with passion can overcome any of your intellectual deficiencies. And one of the questions I've posed recently, some of you might have seen it in the Facebook group, is, or a video on it, is how many of you can remember a time when you were a much better recruiter before you had all the intellectual knowledge that you have now? Tell me if that's true for you. If you're listening to this and you're on the webinar and you can type it in. Is it true that you were actually a better recruiter before you had collected all this knowledge? Like when you were brand new in the company and you didn't even know what you didn't know. You didn't even know about a lot of the objections. You didn't know the answers to a lot of the objections because you didn't know about the objections. And so you were just ignorance on fire. And ignorance on fire is much better than knowledge on ice. And so what happens is, as we collect more and more intellectual knowledge, our passion starts to diminish. And that's a problem. And especially for women. Women don't make intellectual choices. And that's not a demeaning knock on women at all. None of us really make intellectual buying decisions that are going to change our life. We make emotional buying decisions, and then we try to justify it intellectually. So when you speak about your business from an intellectual place, you're coming from the intellect, you're engaging the intellect, you're engaging the least important piece. And if somebody joins Mary Kay intellectually, they probably won't have the rooted inspiration to overcome when their parents or their family members or their friends tell them they're crazy. Because the intellectual decision doesn't have enough juice. It doesn't have enough commitment. It doesn't have enough conviction. It doesn't have enough connection to their soul, to their passion, to their service. It doesn't have enough oomph. It doesn't have enough power. It doesn't have enough leverage. It just doesn't have enough rootedness to overcome the resistance, whether the resistance is external or the resistance is internal. In order to overcome the internal resistance, we got to have internal leverage. We've got to have internal reasons to do this thing. We've got to be tapped into our goals and our dreams, and we've got to realize that we're living a life right now that we don't want to live. We're following a path that we don't want to continue because the end of this path is not the way I wanted my life to show up. It's not the way I wanted my life to turn out. And we need to recognize that the choices that we've made are not going to lead us to the dreams that we have so that we can change our choices. Those are soul-driven perceptions. Those are soul-driven reframes. We've got to disrupt the way that we're thinking about things in order to find the power to overcome the resistance. And in order to find the power to break through the walls of our comfort zone, that is an emotional conversation. So when you make it an intellectual conversation, you're robbing people of the opportunity to make an emotional decision. And you're also robbing yourself of the leverage inside of your emotions to say, I am going to do this because I want to do this, because I want to live my life a certain way. not because I want to have more money, not because I want to have more status, not because I want to have more approval, not because I'm afraid of success, not because of any of those shallow, intellectually driven reasons. You've got to be so emotionally connected to your choice to change your life, your conviction to change your life, and your decision that the intellectual sabotage doesn't have a chance. That's what most people are missing. Now, the great news is that's all findable. There's nobody that does not have that inside them. It's just most people have forgotten. So what I've learned in Mary Kay, for you to change your success, you've got to change your fulfillment first. And that's going to be different for everybody. Now, when it comes to success and entrepreneurship, and Mary Kay specifically, everybody knows you got to take action. But a big fallacy, a huge misunderstanding that a lot of people have is that action is a result of motivation. In other words, we get motivated to make the phone calls. You get motivated to warm chat. You get motivated to follow up. You get motivated to do the classes, to do the appointments, the facials. You get motivated to do the things in the company that you have to do in order to be successful. Well, that's a misunderstanding of where motivation belongs. And we see this all the time in society in all kinds of areas. I mean, how many people have a gym membership, but they don't go to the gym because they're not motivated to go to the gym? They'll go to the gym when they feel like it. They'll eat better when they feel like it. They'll make phone calls when they feel like it. They'll do the follow-up when they feel like it. Problem is, especially for entrepreneurs where you don't work for a boss that can fire you, it's totally up to you to feel like it. And then when you have a family, you've got all these other roles and responsibility. You've got kids, you've got hobbies. You've just got a human life to live. Where are you just going to feel like it? And then if we try to feel like it, if we try to motivate ourselves, if we use whatever tactics we can possibly find to motivate ourselves to do the phone calls, the very act of motivating ourselves is telling us we're not going to enjoy this thing. Whatever activity we need to motivate ourselves into, we won't enjoy, because why would we have to be motivated then if we're going to enjoy it? So when we hold on to motivation as the first thing that happens in the cycle of activity or the cycle of success, then we're telling ourselves we only have to motivate ourselves because this action is not going to be fun. And then we just removed what I ranted on for the last 25 minutes. Is you got to have fun. Fun does not require motivation. So anything you have to motivate yourself to do, you're telling yourself, this ain't going to be fun. And then you go into the phone calls knowing that this won't be fun. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had to be motivated. Now, short term, it might feel like it's a success because you motivate yourself and then you do the phone calls and you get whatever outcomes you get. And it feels like, oh, great, that's the way to do it. But long term, that's disastrous, because now you know what you need every time before you do the activities. You need a motivation session. And if you're the one that's in charge of the motivation session and you don't feel like it, have you ever heard a motivational speech from a motivational speaker who doesn't care? A motivational speaker who shows up is like, yeah, whatever, I'm in a bad mood. So how are you going to be the source of motivation to motivate yourself, which means you don't have the motivation? I don't know if that's making as much sense coming out as it is in my head. So huge misunderstandings that motivation should come first. And in reality, it shouldn't. This ARM cycle for entrepreneurs is action results motivation. Action comes first. Contrary to the way a lot of us are living and the way a lot of people think and what a lot of us believe, you don't need to be motivated in order to do an activity. You actually don't need to feel good in order to do anything. Let's say you've got some follow-up phone calls to do, and you think about making the phone calls, and all of a sudden you have all these sabotage thoughts. What if I'm being too pushy? What if they're having dinner? I don't want to interrupt anybody. I've got all these other things to do. I've got all these other roles and responsibilities, and maybe I'll just do it tomorrow. You can have all of those thoughts and still make the calls. Just because you have a thought rebounding and echoing inside your head like a pinball machine, and it's a really scary thought, that actually doesn't mean that you can't pick up your phone and push buttons. So contrary to the way a lot of us are living our lives, we don't have to feel like doing things in order to do the things. You still can just make the phone call. In fact, it can be worse than that. You can be sweating. You can have cotton mouth. You can like feel like you're going to vomit. You can have all these physical reasons, this physical sabotage, and you can still make the call. There's actually not a literal requirement for us to feel like making the call. So here's why this is so critical, is when you do the actions first, because you said you would. If you join Mary Kay and you say, I want what Mary Kay can provide, well, the only way that's going to happen is if you follow the recipe. And if you sign up to follow the recipe but don't follow the recipe, well, then of course it can't produce what it could otherwise produce. So what if you just said, I'm going to take the actions because I said I was going to take the actions. And this is more about the integrity that I have with myself than it is feeling like making the phone calls. And you just took the actions. When you take the actions, you'll get some kind of results. Positive or negative, doesn't matter, but you'll get some kind of results. And contrary to what a lot of people think, when you get results, even negative results, that motivates us at a deeper level. But the kind of motivation that comes after results, especially the kind that doesn't require positive results, that kind of motivation is based on substance. It's based on experience. So it lasts. And then it can actually feed and fuel more activity. But when the motivation comes first, most of the motivation is some form of, don't worry, it'll all go well. You won't be rejected, right? We're basically trying to protect ourselves from the negative thing happening. That's what pre-motivation usually is. We're telling ourselves the bad thing won't happen. That's not wise, because the bad thing will happen. In fact, the bad thing, if we use no or rejection or people quitting as the bad thing, it's going to happen more than the good thing. So what we have to do is remove the definition of the bad thing being no and the good thing being yes, and trying to motivate ourselves to get a yes. What we've got to do is remove all of those pre-fears, just take action, get the results. Then you'll be motivated to take more action, but it'll be based on experience and not theory. So the problem with pre-motivation is that when you motivate yourself that there are ways to say things and make people say yes, there are ways to say things, or there are things to say that will cause people to not say no. If that's the motivation you're running on, and then you use that script and somebody still says no, well, that pops the entire bubble then. Now you're like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Because I just motivated myself all this time to try to avoid the no, and yet the no still happened. What do I need? More motivation? So we have to remove ourselves from the idea that we're trying to avoid the no, and just open ourselves up to taking actions, getting the results, and being motivated to tweaking our actions. And the bottom line is, wherever you are right now in Mary Kay, it's exactly where you should be. Wherever you are is a product of the recipe you're now following. If you want different results than what you currently have, the only way to do that is to change the recipe. But you can't do it with just beating yourself up or just trying to motivate yourself in the same ways or trying to shoot at the exact same targets that you've been missing for years. That is not introducing a new ingredient into the recipe. And what I see all the time, and I think this is actually quite sad, is the new ingredient that would change the game for pretty much everybody is there. It's available, but almost nobody's looking for it. And when it's offered to them, almost everybody rejects it because it's too simple. It's too elementary. Or they think it's not the actual right answer because their intellect has decided what the answer is supposed to be. And there's nothing that cannot be cleared away when it comes to your fears. And there's nothing that cannot be cleared away when it comes to your sabotage for anybody. Because there is a piece inside of you that actually can outweigh and overpower those fears and that sabotage, but it won't be found intellectually. It won't be found in the how-tos. It won't be found in the protection of trying to avoid rejection or trying to avoid no's. The only way you can really avoid rejection is never ask another person a single question ever again, ever. That's the only way. And in fact, that's what our head talk tries to convince us of. Just don't ask, and then you can't fail. They can't say no if you don't ask. But they also can't say yes if you don't ask. And you can't enjoy life if you're constantly afraid of the potential results. So the final thing I want to talk about here is an incredibly important distinction between what I want you to focus on. What most people are focusing on is behavior. How do I stop the fear? How do I overcome objections? How do I get people to say yes? How do I avoid people saying no? How do I avoid people joining and quitting? How do I do the things? How do I get the skill set to achieve what I'm trying to achieve? That's all behavior. And what I'm telling you is one of the most powerful and profound lessons and truths that I've learned in my 15 years of personal development and 14 plus years teaching and coaching the Mary Kay world is that it is infinitely more important to understand the behavior. Who's the human doing the behavior? If I understand the human, now we can alter the behavior. But if I don't understand the human, then I can't really alter the human's behavior because the rules of behavior change are based on other people's behaviors. So when you hear about how somebody else removed their fear, it might sound really good, but it also might not work for you because it's based on somebody else. So what most people are not doing is they're not putting enough time, energy, money, and attention into their most valuable asset by far, which is themselves. And I tell this to a lot of entrepreneurs, show me what you spend your money on, and I'll show you what you value. And you know, very, very few entrepreneurs are spending a significant amount of money. And by the way, that's not the most important investment. The most important investment is time and energy, not money. But if most people don't spend the money, they definitely won't spend the time and energy. But very few entrepreneurs spend any significant amount of time, energy, or money understanding themselves and strengthening their human muscles. And yet I think everybody would agree with the idea that your most important tool, your most important asset, the most important piece of your success is you. So if that's the most important piece of your success, And in my estimation, it probably accounts for about 95% of your success or failure is you. It's your fears. It's your conflicts. I can teach you how to overcome objections, but if you haven't cleared your fear of conflict or your fear of sales or your fear of marketing or your fear of visibility or fear of success or your fear of men or your fear of women or your fear of leaving people behind or your fear of abandonment, if you haven't cleared any of that stuff, then my knowledge about overcoming objections could be complete, could be magic. And you'll still sabotage it because we're putting magic on a broken foundation. And what I was saying a little while ago with different words is that magical skill set cannot overcome broken foundation. And when we are the foundation, then that's what we should be focusing on. And the solid internal foundation, the solid understanding of yourself and why you do the things that you do does have the power to overcome any of the behavior deficiencies, because we could just learn that stuff. So what I want to propose to you and invite you to do is spend more time around understanding yourself than trying to apply other people's rules to your behavior. And we see it all the time. Again, it's not a Mary Kay problem, but we see it all the time in society. People are searching for the way to blank. What's the way to get overcome or to overcome abandonment issues? I don't know. Where's your abandonment come from? Right? It depends. It depends. How you are going to get over your fear depends on your fear, and it depends on how you're holding on to your fear. Now, almost nobody wants to hear what I'm saying right now, because that doesn't fit what the intellect has decided is the solution. It doesn't fit the magical pill. It doesn't fit the shortcut. It doesn't fit the 1, 2, 3 formula, which is what our intellect is looking for, because our intellect is a computer. It doesn't fit what most people are searching for. That's why people miss it or dismiss it, because it doesn't fit what the problem is searching for. Now, let me dissect that. The intellect is the problem. So if the intellect, which is the problem, has decided what the solution is, how valuable do you think that solution is going to be? Because the entity that just decided what the solution is the problem. It's not going to find a solution for itself. So what most people are not doing is they're not finding the real solutions for themselves. And here's what I've learned this so much, or so concretely. I believe this with every ounce of my soul. The solutions you're looking for are simple. The sabotage is complicated. So anything that's complicated is probably going to keep you spinning. The solutions are simple, but we dismiss them because we live in a complicated society. And what I'm all about, what my role is and what my commitment is in the work that I do on the planet, in the world, is to simplify solutions for human healing. Simplify the solutions to overcome the sabotage. Let's simplify it. Because the amount of time, the amount of energy, the amount of money that you'll end up spending on all the complicated band-aids over the course of time, cumulatively, will probably be 1,000 times more than the solution. But people don't want to hear this. And so sometimes, even when I get into teaching this, it's somewhat of a risk, because most people don't buy what they need. Most people buy what their intellect wants. And that's why they stay stuck. So honestly, transparently, like my challenge as the the teacher that I am, and the teacher that I always like to be, is I teach simplicity, and I try to teach the solutions. And a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people will then go, well, that's not what I'm looking for. And that's not what I need. Or they go, oh, that sounds hard, or that sounds painful, or that sounds super emotional. So I don't want to do that. I'm just going to try to find a better Band-Aid. Okay. And at some point in time, the Band-Aids will run out, and you'll come back to the truth. So let me invite you into something here, which is my version of the simple solution. Now, it's simple, but there's a big conversation when it comes to applying it to life, and specifically to Mary Kay. So I did a group program recently called Success and Fulfillment in Your Mary Kay Business. I want to tell you a little bit about it. You've got a 50% off discount code, CYF, which lets us know that you came from this webinar, which is titled Clear Your Fears, Stop Your Sabotage and Succeed with Joy. So this is the way that we can tell that you came from this webinar. And if you are listening to this webinar, use CYF in the discount code, and you can get a 50% off discount. So this program, I want to tell you about it. I want to spend a few minutes here talking about success and fulfillment. Let me see if it'll take me there. I think it might take me there if I click on this. There you go. I now need to share my screen again so you can see there you go. So success and fulfillment, and I'm not going to read this whole page. You can read it on your own time. But what this is the most comprehensive collection of pretty much everything that I've learned in almost 15 years of Mary Kay, and it's all put into this one program. So this is not something that you're just going to listen to a few times over a few nights and magically change your life, right? This is like a vault of a tremendous amount of solutions from pretty much every different angle, handling pretty much all possible challenges that you might have in your Mary Kay business. So this is like a collection of my personal work inside of Mary Kay. It's a very comprehensive, like A to Z, everything I've got, all put into this one library of solutions and content and information. So you can read through all of this if you want. You can hear some stories of some people that have taken the course and some of the successes that they've had. Rolion says, you've educated me more about myself than in the last 51 years. Remember, yourself is the most valuable education that you can have, right? So this program is all about creating balance and fulfillment and joy and happiness, all the things that I started out talking about in this webinar that are required for women specifically. And one of the things that I did in this program is I dissected money beliefs and success beliefs more so than I'd ever done before, because if you have an unhealthy relationship to money and or success, you're stuck. I mean, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to succeed if you've got an unhealthy relationship to success, or for you to allow money to flow in your life if you've got an unhealthy relationship to money. And your money situation is a byproduct of your relationship to money. Your level of success is a byproduct of your relationship to success. So if we don't dissect and address your relationship to these things, your beliefs around these things, your values around these things, then those things can't change. So this is about an inside out approach to fulfillment and joy and fun, and a Mary Kay specific component on top of that. So we still talk about setting goals specifically in Mary Kay. We talk about systems. We talk about time management. We talk about motivation strategies. We talk about everything that you could possibly imagine. I think maybe there's something that we don't talk about and you just let me know and we'll do a video on it or something. But pretty much everything that we possibly imagine as it relates to that third bullet there on the screen: implementation, 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 implementation. A lot of people have intellectual knowledge that they're not implementing, and knowledge unimplemented is ignorance. What's the point of knowing something if it's not implemented? So a lot of people know things, but they're not implementing it. Therefore, you might as well not know things. We are way, way overeducated in our world and under-implemented in our world. So everything is really focused on how do we implement this? Not how do you know about the fear of rejection and failure, and how do you know about the affirmations or the motivation strategies that can get you around the fear of rejection. This is about removing the fear of rejection. This is about allowing you to tap into something where the fear actually dissolves, and then proving to yourself that you can make the phone calls, that you can warm chat people and still have fun in that process. So that's what this program is really all about. And it's an online program. It's go at your own pace. There are 21 modules in the program. The first 19 modules are for everybody. You can see money, success, the science of joy and happiness, your environments, positive physical energy, positive emotional energy. That's another big, big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. They don't learn how to create internal energy. Most people's minds and bodies are fighting against them. And being an entrepreneur is already difficult for most people. It's already hard for most people. If you take something that's already hard and then you start fighting against your own mind and your own body and your own energy, now you've just made it infinitely harder. So I really broke down what it takes to create physical energy from the inside out, emotional energy from the inside out, so you actually are working in your favor instead of against yourself. And one of the reasons that a lot of women struggle in Mary Kay is because their bodies and their minds are telling them to shut down and shut up. And that's a function of them fighting their own minds and their own bodies. Of course, their body is going to ask for a rest because it's not generating energy from the inside out. So we dissect all of these components: doubt and worry and fears and activity management and time management, and how to duplicate in your business and your drivers of values and definitions of pain and pleasure, and the micro decisions and the macro decisions that you've made all along the way, the declarations you've made about yourself to yourself, the way you see the world, the belief system that you're holding on to. All of those things are going to determine whether you succeed or not, much more than scripts. I'm not saying those are unimportant, but they're insufficient. So we talk about boundaries with family. We talk about identities, how to generate positive habits, how to destroy negative habits, how to increase your self-esteem, how to increase your confidence, how to be a better leader, a more balanced, fun leader, how to be more influential and persuasive in an aligned way that doesn't feel like you're trying to overpower people or trying to just get them to do what they don't otherwise want to do. So we talk a lot about these Mary Kay specific topics, but all coming from a foundational place. And then the last two modules are level specific, meaning the last two modules are either for consultants only or directors only. If you're a director, I spent a couple modules talking director only conversations that really only apply to directors, and then consultant only conversations that really only apply to consultants to help you get to that next level. So that's what is captured here in this program. There are a couple bonuses. You can be, you'll be in the Eagles Club for a couple months, and you can have an individual business strategy session so that you can have a a private call with one of our coaches to help you implement some of this stuff and answer any of the questions that are specific for you. Because remember, it's more important to understand the behavior, the person, rather than just the behavior. Kim says she went from 26 team members to over 70 team members. Production was $4,000. It went to over $10,000 all in just a few months while she was pregnant. Diane said she was making one booking every day after this. Joan going from $5,000 to $10,000. These are all like real world results after these people did the internal changes. So the published cost of the program is only $97. I mean, think about it. What if 21 modules of inside out information, hours and hours and hours? What if you had a vault of all of this information that could deal with any of the internal challenges and struggles that you have? Do you think you could make an extra $97 with it? Right? Do you think you could sell one more extra starter kit? Do you think you could recruit one more person over the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years? If you had access to a vault of coaching information that will apply to pretty much any challenge that you have, would you be able to earn an additional $97 or more? And if the answer is yes, then it's a good investment. If the answer is no, if you're determined that you will not implement anything, you won't accept any of the help and the support and the guidance, and you won't plug into any of the people that are trying to help you, then please don't purchase this. Steffi says, I got rid of layers that have been holding me back in many areas of my life. This is much bigger than just Mary Kay. So this program is published at $97. I told you on this webinar, you'll be able to have a 50% discount. So if you go all the way down the bottom and click add to cart, it'll take you to the page. Your discount code is CYF for Clear Your Fears. And look at that, $48.50. And if this program doesn't help create $48.50 more in your business, then please ask for your money back. Please. And your $48.50 is certainly not going to change my life, but 30 plus hours of life coaching information and application toward Mary Kay can absolutely change yours. So that's my invitation. Join us in Success and Fulfillment. It's this online go at your own pace program. It's very deep. It's very rich. You'll have access as long as you want. And I guarantee it will change the way you relate to so many different foundational areas of your life, and thereby changing a lot of the things that you have been struggling with or sabotaging yourself in Mary Kay. And even if you're successful, this isn't just for people who are struggling. You might be successful but don't have balance in your life, or you might be successful but don't feel the same connection with your family or your children that you want to have. And all of this applies to every aspect of your human experience with Mary Kay and your human experience with life. So I hope this has been valuable for you. If you have any questions at all about this program, about anything that I said, about something that I didn't say, anything at all, then please let us know. You can respond to any of the emails that you get. You can tag me on social media. We're pretty easy to get a hold of. So with that, I hope you found something that has been valuable and intriguing and something that you can really see the importance of shifting in your life. For those of you that feel like this is the next step for you, then jump in the program, and we have a Facebook group, so we'll support you in the Facebook group and you can ask ongoing questions. And if you don't think it's valuable, or if it's not your next step, then that's fine too. Then I hope you can take something out of this content and implement it in whatever way you possibly can. But what I want to leave you with is what I know to be true is that it is absolutely possible to clear away your fears rather than continue coping with them. And most of our strategies that we're taught by society is about coping rather than clearing. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather clear something and not have to manage it than just learn how to manage it and continue wrestling with it and continue being frustrated, trying to follow the same recipes and expecting different results. So everything that you're wanting is possible, and the solutions are available, and success and fulfillment is a way for us to guide you toward those solutions. So with that, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. If you have any questions at all, let us know, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.